All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 427, I think, of the Restoring Rapport podcast. This is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family, trying to get married as young as possible in a healthy way according to God's design. My name is Seth Hensley. I come on twice a week, every week on Thursday and Sunday to discuss not only the benefits of getting married young, but I try to equip and encourage you in your pursuit of that goal. And today we're going to be reviewing a video by Lila Rose on how gentle parenting works against human nature. The reason that I'm curious about this is, as you know, my wife and I are going to be having our first child in late May of this year. And so we are really excited to start that process. And so I'm becoming more and more curious about parenting videos. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and see what they say about gentle parenting, how it affects human nature, and kind of the consequences and ramifications of adopting it as a parenting style. So, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on what they say.
Another big one. You got to have discipline control, because if you don't, you get ugly. I'm fond of saying gentle parenting is a way to be a nasty parent.
What do you mean?
Because you're going to get frustrated. Gentle parenting doesn't.
Resentment builds.
Gentle parenting doesn't work because it assumes something that's flawed.
How do you define, really quick, because this is a hot debate.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
How do you define gentle parenting?
Yeah.
Gentle parenting is reasoning, understanding, being very slow to discipline, but in fact giving choices. Now, all that's good. All that is good. The problem is it implies that if you do it that way, then your kid is going to cooperate. And when he doesn't, you get frustrated. And when you get frustrated, you get ugly. You go to confession. Bless me, Father.
I'm impatient
Before
again this
children,
week on 4 occasions.
I've
made that confession before.
pretty nice before children. Now I'm not
you
pretty
sound
or
like
nice.
me, Dr. Ray.
And then you say, Father, would I be wrong thinking about shooting my kid with a bazooka?
Haven't done that one.
Okay.
But
you get frustrated. And for you, Lila, you got 3 little ones, right?
Yeah.
You need the ability. Now, I think the youngest is how old?
1.
Okay, so this really not into
18
any,
months. She acts like she's 2.
You're inching your way toward some kind of discipline. Which parents say, what is discipline? I say, well, discipline, very simply put, is this: an expectation backed by a consequence. In other words, you're not allowed to mistreat your brother. You can't mistreat your brother. Now, sometimes a parent will say, but wait, I want to teach him to treat his brother right. I go, true, but you have to first stop mistreatment. Because we as Christians know that the bent is toward mistreatment. We have a fallen human nature. We're going to do what's in our interest, and our interest collides with his interest. So you can't mistreat your brother.
It is true the original thing. Just quick bar on this, and I'm curious your thoughts, because I see with this kind of the fallen nature, at the very young age, there's like angels, but then they can be like
of course.
demons, but not because they're intending the sin. It's not like, because before the age of reason, there's no moral culpability, but it's just like, I want that toy. I want this. I want that. And, it's a human nature thing. And it's, again, not an act of sin for a child like that young, because they don't have reason, right? They can't consent to the sin.
You know what I believe is the most overused and sad adjective to describe children? Strong-willed. I hate that. The implication is that because he wants to do what he wants to do, because he's self-centered, all of which our Christian teaching would say is innate to the human before we are socialized and moralized, we look at this and say, why is he so strong-willed? And I want to say, Mom, he's not going to cooperate with you. If you've got one that's more cooperative, count your blessings. Say, thank you, dear Lord. But if you get one like that first, Lila, it'll ruin the rest of your parenting, because you'll think you're God's gift to parent. And then Cujo comes along, Conan over here. And all of a sudden, you've got a normal child. But you then describe that child as strong-willed. So strong.
Lot there. I do think it's interesting. I think before you talk about gentle parenting, I'm glad that both of them started off this conversation by defining what they think gentle parenting is. Because I think that's a pretty important. Let me look up gentle parenting definition. because you've got to know what you're talking about before you talk about it here. Gentle parenting is a relationship-focused approach centered on empathy, respect, understanding, and clear boundaries, aiming to guide children rather than control them through punishment, fostering emotional intelligence, resilience, and strong parent-child bonds by validating feelings and teaching self-regulation through connection. I had so many reactions to that sentence there when I was reading it, some good, some bad. Okay, so let's start. A relationship-focused approach. That's great. I think that's awesome. Centered on empathy. My first thought there is like, I mean, I do think you need to remember what it was like when you were a child, yes, but I don't think that's a key part of parenting. I think because I do believe that I don't think children should rule the roost. And so, I don't know. It's kind of like I see it like a child is running your home or you are. And so you want to be the one doing that because you are going to have the wisdom to guide your children to a better life more than they do, for sure. Not that you have it down perfectly, obviously, but they definitely don't have it down. And so you're the only alternative. Respect, I do think respect is good. Understanding, again, that's getting into the like, okay, I understand that it's hard to be a child, but I also am not going to let you do whatever you want and end up somewhere that you will not want to be later in life because I didn't provide you with some boundaries. Clear boundaries, that's great. Aiming to guide children rather than control them through punishment. That is a really, it's so nuanced and hard here because I don't think you're trying to, the Bible teaches self-control, not other person control. But I don't equate that with discipline. I don't equate discipline with trying to control other people. I think discipline is the teaching process by which you correct your child who does not know better, who has no idea what, the best way is. And in doing so, lead them to the better life. And so I don't know I wouldn't define discipline or correction as control. And I also think the conversation of humility comes into the picture here because children need to understand that I do not understand everything. I do not have all the answers. I am not the final word here. I'm not the source of all truth. And so it would be kind of arrogant for me to, assume that I know better than my mother and father. I think that's a really good approach for kids to have. And I think that's a good approach for just the entire body of Christ to have. Just to be a lot more teachable and humble than we are, because we think we're just so confident in everything we say, and it's like maybe we should, before we act like such amazing teachers, maybe we need to be students and learners and pupils and followers of Jesus instead of just, I don't know, thinking like we have all the answers. And so I think that if you're doing this kind of family approach where children are, you perceive them as knowing more than they do, and then therefore letting them take liberties and kind of run things more than they should, that will end you up somewhere kind of bad, because children need to have the humility to know, my mom and dad love me and they know a lot of things, and I appreciate all the help that they're giving me. And that's really, the love thing's got to be there. Like, mom and dad love me. They're taking care of me. They love taking care of me. Their goal is to, help me in every possible way they can. And so I need to realize that I don't have all the answers here. So control through punishment. I don't know that maybe that there's probably, you can go extreme either ways here, but I don't know how I react to that. Fostering emotional intelligence. I'm an SEL teacher. So I do think, I don't know. I think emotional intelligence is important, but I don't think it's something that is like super, what's the word? I think that we've done a fine job with EQ. I don't think the EQ is lacking in so much as I think the discipline is lacking, if I'm being totally honest with you. Because I think that emotionally intelligent children, let me just use my experience as a teacher. If a kid does something in my classroom that hurts another person, either emotionally or physically, And then I say, hang on, everybody pause. And then I ask the offending party to look at the party that's unhappy. If I ask them to say, hey, will you look at their face for a minute, and do you think that they liked what you just did? They obviously know the answer to that question. They are very emotionally intelligent enough, even at a very young age, to understand what I just did was not helpful. In fact, it wasn't just not helpful, it was downright harmful, and it was being a problem. I was myself being a problem, and just not helping at all. Okay. And so they are totally capable of understanding that even at a young age. So I don't think the EQ is the problem so much as I think discipline is the problem. Resilience. I mean, yeah, I think that is important because kids are going to have lots of hard stuff in life, and they've got to be able to cope without, just falling to pieces whenever something, small happens. Strong parent-child bonds, that is huge. I think that's the biggest one they've mentioned here. You have to have the connection component, I think. And this is why it's so hard for me as a teacher sometimes, because I literally get 40 minutes a week with the students that I'm expected to teach these social skills. And it's like, I'll do my best, but I don't expect life-changing results when I see them for 40 minutes a week, because you've got to have a strong bond in order to place strong demands. And I think that's what parenting has to be. It's like parenting, you've got to place a lot of strong demands on your child. So the bond that exists that's supporting those demands has to be, way more than capable of taking those demands. And I think sadly, we don't have those bonds built well enough so that when we place a demand on the relationship, everything falls apart. Danny Silk has this great teaching where he talks about couples that come into his office, and he tells them that they have a connection problem, and he illustrates it by saying, stand up, and I want you to both hold one side of this tissue and not let go no matter what, okay? And that represents kind of what you want. And so he has them, step apart from one another and kind of pull on that tissue a little bit. That's the indication that, hey, I want you to do this. That's the communication that there's something wrong, or that there's something that either party would like to do. And if both parties don't let go of that tissue, that connection is not going to be able to sustain that tug. Okay, it's just going to tear in half. And of course, the tissue rips. And then he says, all right, we're going to repeat the experiment again. And he says, both of you grab either side of this belt, like a big, leather belt. And he says, now if you do that same motion, that same pull, that same indication that, hey, I want you to do something, even if it's hard on you, you're going to move, And I think that's what parenting really is. It really comes down to that connection, because when you've got that strong connection, your kids are going to want to make you happy, and they're not going to want to damage that connection with you in any way possible, okay? And so if you don't have that connection with them, those demands are it's going to be harder for them to, fly. It says by validating feelings and teaching self-regulation through connection. Validating feelings, I think, gets way too overused. Like the government, not the government, I should say. Well, it is kind of the government. I'm a public educator, so technically I am a government employee. The politically correct response to validating feelings is that you're supposed to affirm that statement. Like, feelings are, I don't know, they wouldn't say all feelings are good, but they were supposed to say you're supposed to tell children that it's okay to feel all feelings, which I do understand that human emotion is something that's just going to happen in your life. But I think you've got to be really careful with the phrase validating feelings, because there are some feelings that have to be disciplined in order to not cause harm. The Bible says, be angry, but sin not. Don't let the sun go down on your anger, right? And so it's like, anger itself is not the problem, but if it is uncontrolled, undisciplined, and you do not have, if you don't actually, mold it, then it is going to create major problems in your life. And so I think you got to be really careful when you're talking about parenting with the phrase validating feelings. Like, sometimes kids will get feelings that are not helpful to themselves or other people or anybody at all. Like, I'm just thinking the kid that, that wants something in the grocery store and throws a temper tantrum because he or she perceives that that is not going to happen, and tries to change the situation and control the situation by giving the people around him or her, a bad experience. And that is not like that in no way needs validated. That actually needs correction and discipline and put back on the right track. Like, okay, sweet little 5-year-old, you are off the mark here. I'm going to put you back on the right track, which goes back to the connection thing. Okay. Because if you don't have the connection, it's going to be a lot harder to do that. And I think that the connection is what makes it a lot easier to place that heavy demand on that relationship, and for them to make you, want to make them want to please you and keep their connection with you intact. Teaching self-regulation. I think I prefer, as always, the biblical term, which is self-control. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law, Galatians 5. Self-regulation is a modern term that kind of, what's the word? Rather than being a fruit of the Spirit, it makes it more about what you're doing. And I think I believe in kind of co-laboring. The Bible talks a lot about co-laboring and how you have responsibilities to uphold, and also the Lord is going to bring about a good work in you. And so there's kind of like this duality to it where it's like, you both cannot do everything by yourself, but must do everything that you can in order to see this fruit of the Spirit. And so teaching this self-regulation kind of implies, I don't know. It's just, I think the term is a little bit too focused on what the individual can do. And a lot of it is, and needs to be, kids need to be taught like, hey, I don't think, none of us have everything we need, and none of us are complete in and of ourselves. We are ingredients. We are pieces of the greater puzzle, that kind of thing. That's why I don't like the self-regulation thing. Now, I think self-regulation is a good thing. I think that's just another word for self-control. I just don't like the term because I hear and feel different things in my mind when I hear it. I prefer self-control. But through connection is good. I like that, the way they ended that. It involves guiding children with kindness, explaining reasoning, modeling desired behaviors, and repairing mistakes, focusing on long-term development over immediate compliance, and aligns closely with authoritative parenting as opposed to passive or authoritarian parenting, is I imagine what they would say. Core principles like empathy. Again, I don't think empathy is I don't think that's the big thing that needs to be emphasized in parenting, because I don't know. I don't think it plays a role. Like, you love your children. Yes, you remember what it was like to be a child. Yes, you understand the difficult things they're going through. Yes, you understand that they're having what for them are big feelings, even though in the grand scheme of things are not that big of a deal. But that's not the foundation. The foundation is, I love you and you are a mess, and I am trying to help you have a good life, and not only have a good life, be of service to other people and the Lord. And that is, and you need some things to get from where you are to that point. And so I'm going to try and help you get there by laying my life down and making it, doing whatever hard thing is asked of myself to get you to that place. Okay. Empathy, I don't really think is the core there. Respect, obviously, yes, that's really good. Treating children as individuals, acknowledging their feelings and thoughts at individuals. I don't like to think of people as in individualistic senses. I don't like to think of people as, I like to think of people in part of what they portray and the things that they can do with other people rather than by themselves. So I just don't like that. Acknowledging their feelings and thoughts. This is the one maybe I might have a problem with, acknowledging their feelings and thoughts. I don't think you can acknowledge. Okay, I like acknowledging, like, hey, I understand this is what you're feeling. Like, but that but is so important, because like, what the kid's feeling is not always going to help them at all. They do not, Feelings are a bad pilot of your ship, okay? And so I just don't think you can be kind while still holding a boundary and holding a line and teaching and correcting and training in righteousness, as as Paul's letter to Timothy would say. It's just like I don't know. Boundaries, yeah, that's good. Guidance and modeling, that's super really good. Because monkey see, monkey do. If you're going to ask your kids to do one thing and you're doing the exact opposite, that ain't going to work. Connection, I think, is the biggest, though. Connection is the best of the core principles of gentle parenting. So I don't think gentle parenting is necessarily a good thing, and we can get into I want to hear more what they say, but connection is the element that I think gentle parenting has that's actually good. Let's go ahead and continue to see what they have to say, though.
Strong-willed, mind of her own. 6 going on 16. See, we use these kind of adjectives when in fact I want to say you just got a kid. And we've forgotten what kids are. And part of the reason for that is that the experts have convinced parents that your kids, if you parent properly, are going to say, "Oh, mother, I've been so blind." Of course. Let's hold hands, sing Kumbaya around the campfire.
Okay.
No. That's not what the scriptural vision is, though. The scriptural vision is not like kids throw their feelings out the window and acknowledge that their parents, have the right in every situation. No, that's not. It's honor your father and mother. We have totally, as a culture, forgotten what honor even is. Let's just define it here. It's almost become an archaic term, because if you use the word "I honor you," people are going to look at you like you're weird. Or if they say honor is a value of mine, they're going to look at you like you're weird. It's not I don't know. We need honor, because that's consciously used in the Bible. Honor your parents. Honor your parents. It's defined as a high respect, a great esteem, an adherence to what is right or to a convictional standard of conduct, regard with great respect, to fulfill an obligation, to keep an agreement. What else? Not the privileged sense of it. I don't want that word. To fulfill an obligation. That's true. But really what honor, I think, means is there is a sense of reverence and respect towards someone, even when you don't understand what they're saying, to the point that you're never going to behave dishonorably toward them even if they are wrong, is kind of what it comes down to. So kids need to have this, because they're probably not going to understand why you have the rules that you do all the time. I mean, I remember I didn't understand why my parents had the rules that they did, but honor means that it's my job to not treat them in a vitriolic way because I disagree with them. So Danny Silk would say it like this. He would say, you never have permission to turn off your love for your parents, ever. You never have permission to do that. There are all kinds of, ways that they might be wrong or you might be wrong, but that doesn't matter in so much as what matters is that you're never turning off that love and that respect for your parents and for your children. That's got to be because again, if you're turning that off and you're yelling at each other and being disrespectful and slinging names and saying you never or you always and that kind of junk, then what you're saying is, I don't care if you're right or I'm right, or you're wrong or I'm wrong. In either situation, I'm clearly okay being disrespectful to you because I feel bad. That's really what you're saying. And that is I feel like that's just going to blow everything up and make it harder for everything to work.
Okay, but I took you on a sidebar, so thank you for the patience with me on that. But you were laying the foundations for what discipline is. Mm-hmm. And you just said, oh, well, they're not going to do the kumbaya, but it sounds like your wife had it locked in. Okay, they weren't kumbayaing maybe, but they were obeying, yes. And it sounds like there was harmony.
I had a client come to my office, and her husband said one of the more humble things I've gotten from clients. He said, I disagreed with my wife the whole time we were raising our oldest son. I thought she was too strict. I thought her standards were too high. I was much, much, much more permissive. I thought he would outgrow all of this.
Well, okay, sorry. I'm not to diss this couple or anything, but if that's the problem, if you like, you guys need to be on the same team. So if you're like, I'm not an expert on parenting yet because I'm going to be a new parent soon. I have worked with thousands of children. So I do find myself in the unique position of having worked with thousands of children as a public school teacher, but having no children of my own until now, which is so weird because I'm young and you're not, it's almost like I've done it in the most unnatural way possible because kind of the way God's designed it to work is like you get married, you have children. And I obviously think you should do that young as you possibly can in a healthy way. And so that's the normal order. But what I did was like the means of supporting my family, the way that I make money is by taking care of other people's children. So that's put me in a position where I had like I had exposure to the fruit of so many different parenting styles. Like I'm talking like so many different parenting styles. I was just exposed to the fruit of all their work. And I was responsible for like growing the fruit of all their work even further. And it's like, man, it's so weird because like I've seen the fruit of almost every parenting style under the sun before I even have children of my own. And it's going to be so weird when I am raising this child, my child is who I'm talking about, when I'm now raising my child and I'm having to choose what my parenting styles are going to be based on the fruit of thousands of trees that I've seen. It's such a weird feeling. Like, and because every time when I want to make a decision, I am seeing the fruit that has been made by other parents when they had to make that same decision, and I'm seeing the good parts of it and the bad parts of it. And it's so paralyzing almost is how it feels to me because, I just, every time the decision is mine to make, I just see the fruit. I see that my kid, I'm going to see my kid's future, the good and bad of both parenting styles. And I'm just going to be, I don't know, I just find it, I'm going to have to be really decisive. And I'm really good at being decisive, but it's going to have to be conscious for me because I really see the fruit, of the future in either of those parenting roads. But you've got to, back to what he said, you've got to be on the same team there or your whole family is going to be, pulled in different directions and therefore torn asunder, kind of like a house divided against itself cannot stand. You have to be a united front with your wife. So step one is not trying to raise the child here. Step one is getting back on the same team with your wife and making sure your approaches are aligned and that you're actually moving towards the same goal. Otherwise, your ship is being torn apart, as we speak.
He's 21 now and his life's a mess. So we have a 14-year-old. And I don't want to make the same mistakes. So we're here, Dr. Ray. Give us some guidance, and I'm going to agree with what you say and my wife. So I asked them, if you told this 14-year-old that's disrespectful, you need to please sit down and write a nice essay on why you're grateful to live here and why you should not be disrespectful. And that's a minimum 300 words handwritten. Would he do it? And the mother said, oh, of course not. Oh, no. Be an automatic fight. Be an automatic brawl, an argument. Awful. I said, well, here's what I think you need to do. At that point, until you get the essay, all perks and privileges cease. Every single thing. That means there is no outside. There's no computer. There's no friends. If you go to Pizza Hut, he doesn't eat. He eats at home because he's eating out's a privilege. A favorite sweatshirt's gone. Anything technical is gone. If you have to drive him to school, well, that's a privilege, so we'll pay him some mileage. In other words, you don't understand how many things as a parent are in your leverage. And she said, you mean that's kind of like a blackout? And I said, what a great word. And I talk about that in my books, and I also talk about that from our own perspective as parents. That's the reason why the kids didn't refuse going to the corner. If they did, my wife said, okay, blackout. Mom, I'm going to go outside. No, I didn't get my corner yet. Mom, where's my stuffed animal? Oh, it's on the refrigerator. I didn't get my corner yet. How come I don't get no cake? Oh, no, you don't get any dessert at all. You didn't go to the corner yet. In other words, until you do what we asked you to do, you're going to realize all these things are gone.
And I think this is actually great. Go ahead and call me like, now I think again, all these things need to be done with honor towards the children too, and respect towards the children. I don't think you should treat them without, like, they have no dignity. I just think that there has to be a clear line of authority here, because somebody is running your house. Somebody is running your house. Okay. And it's either, and even when there's so many ways wrong that you can do this. Cause, like, obviously as Christians, we want to be submitted to the Lord and running our home in a way that pleases the Lord. Okay. But it also, even if you're, like, how do I say this? When I say somebody's running your house, I mean your child is running your home, or the parents are running your home in submission to the Lord, or they could be running their home out of submission to the Lord, which would be very sad. But that's where you kind of get into the authoritarian kind of, I think, thing where honor is thrown to the winds. And you can't throw honor to the winds, because that would be unscriptural too. But somebody's running your home. And if you have a child running your home, it is nothing but chaos. And it is a disservice to not only the child, but every member of that family. It is a disservice to the parents, because that child is not going to take care of them when he or she is older. It is a disservice to everyone. Like, it literally produces no good fruit when a child runs a home, and of course it doesn't. Kids don't know what they're doing, and it's not their fault. They just don't. Okay. So it's your job to steer your ship in alignment with the will of the Lord. That's your job as a parent. Okay. And so, I don't know, man. It's just like, if someone's running your home, you've got to figure out who it is. And the scenario he's describing is a child running the home. It's parents who are basically letting the child do whatever he or she wants with no privileges or, boundaries or things being enforced or rules, or it sounds like they're just giving him infinite amounts of their resources to live however he wants. They're like funding his road to Hades is kind of what it seems to me like. And that is a terrible way to raise a child, I think, because that nothing good comes of that. They grow up to be tyrants. They expect everybody to do whatever they want. They throw a hissy fit whenever something doesn't go their way. They're completely morally lost. They have no idea what the right way is, because they've been their desires have been guiding them for their entire life, and nothing else has been guiding them. So that's a very dangerous place to find themselves in. And so, yeah, the child's steering the home in that scenario. In the scenario he's describing, where with respect and with honor, parents are rewarding good behavior with their resources, internet, and I'm not saying take food or anything. I'm not saying take necessity. It's your job to take care of God's creation that he's entrusted you with. You're to obviously provide all needs. I'm talking about privileges and things that your child really loves, and they light up when they, interact with. Those things that you provide for them, that needs to be a reward for good behavior that shows them the way. Okay, that shows them the way that leads to life. If you are giving them those good things, and you're kind of, even when they're doing terrible things, you're kind of leaving them lost, because they really don't know. You're not showing them the way. You're kind of making it hard for them to find the way by funding whatever choice they make. You need to fund and put your money and your blessings into things that are awesome for that child. That's what I think. I think what he's describing here is really, really genius. Like, let's say you're like let's make it personal. Let's say my daughter, decides that she's going to, allow her desires to steer her ship, and she feels like talking, disrespectfully to her mother one day, my wife. She feels like, rather than honoring my wife, she feels like angry at her, and in the moment she chooses to lash out with disrespect. In that moment, I have the choice to either continue to fund that decision by giving her, her Nintendo Switch and time with friends, and, time on her iPad, and, going to that sleepover that she wanted to go to, and all this stuff. Or I have the opportunity to guide her in the way that is going to lead her to the good life by using my resources to show her what that is and supply her with those good resources, that Nintendo Switch and that iPad and that time at that sleepover, when she does what's a good decision and makes restitution with her mother and chooses honor and respect for her mother, even when she disagrees with her mother. That's what I want to obviously, cultivate, right? And so if I just keep giving her all those good things, when she is doing whatever she wants, she is A, lost, B, making everyone miserable, and I am funding her endeavors to do all those things. Okay? And so I just think what he said there was really good. You have to use your resources. You don't control, like, I do think it's true that we don't control other people. Like, I don't think parents technically control their children. They don't have a remote control for their children. All of that stuff is true. But you do control your resources. You control how your money is spent. You control your car. You control, where your kid has access, the friends that your kid has access to. There's lots of things that your kids do not want to live without that you control. Okay. They would live totally fine without them. It's not like you're damaging their life or anything, but there's lots of joyful parts of life that your kids really want that you provide. And so you need to use those to, and I'm not trying to give parenting advice per se here, because obviously I'm not a parent yet, but I'm kind of talking to my future self and anybody who wants to listen to my words. You need to use those to steer. Use those to steer, because somebody's steering your home. It's either your kids or it's either the parent team. So, I mean, you want it to be the parent team, in my opinion.
Not mean, not nasty, not jackbooted, kick the door down. No, it's just a very calm, I told you need to go to the corner or this is going to happen. And it didn't take too many of those before finally she just said,
absolutely.
Put your head down at the dining room table, please. I'll set the timer. And they did. Because a few times they said no, they saw what happened. And they didn't like that.
Mm-hmm. So she did that early on, consistently enough.
Yes.
And also it sounds like calmly enough.
Oh yeah, she wasn't yelling at anybody. She wasn't screaming. So she wasn't threatening them. You little.
Yeah, see, that would be the disrespectful scenario. That would be the where the parent is actually behaving in an unscriptural way toward their child. But in the honor scenario, where like, I'm going to honor you and love you no matter what you do, but I also am going to put I control my resources. Okay. And I want to be connected with you and for our relationship to be whole. And so if you're going to try to damage that by hurting this relationship, I'm not going to just fund your efforts to damage this relationship. Okay. I'm going to fund your efforts to keep this relationship whole, because that's what I want to do with my money. Right. Okay. Yeah, that's so good there. I really think that's important. And I know this is complicated and there's a lot of consequences to any parenting style you have, both good and bad. Let me know what yours are in the YouTube comments or through a personal message on the social media to the podcast. Would love to hear those, but yeah, this is just what I'm thinking right now, especially after I've worked with so many students, and you can just see the fruit of parenting. Like, they come in your room and they just start like, I don't know. I've seen everything from like disrespecting other students and assuming that my way is right and how dare you get in my way, that kind of thing, that arrogance, to, I've seen the people come in who, literally never assert themselves at all. There's just so many children with so many different problems. I've seen the kids come in who are spoiled, who don't know how to solve a problem because they've never had to solve a problem. Every problem has been solved for them. I've seen the kids who have a harder life than I do and who are, more accustomed to making do than I am. And it's just every single parenting strategy is just going to have different fruit, and a lot of it's going to be good. A lot of it's going to be bad. But I'll tell you one thing, as a public school teacher, the kind of, you don't want to raise the kind of kid who has run the home instead of being shown the way by his parents. You don't want to raise that kind of kid, because that kid is so lost, so hopelessly clueless about anything without your input and your instruction and your teaching. and your correction and your love. They are so lost without that. Okay. And so I would just tell you, like, yeah, you need to be leading your home. Who's leading your home? It has to be you, your husband, wife team in submission to the Lord. That's what it has to be. If it's anything else, leading your home, I feel like it's just a train wreck. It's just a train wreck. You have to, okay, so here's what maybe you practically don't know what I mean by like husband and wife team in submission to the Lord leading the home. Here's what I mean. You and your spouse have to be on the same team. You have to be submitted to God's law. That means that every decision you make cannot be immoral. It cannot be against God's scriptural commands and the way he set the world up to work. It cannot be, or it's going to fail. Okay, so you have to be submitted to the Lord. Your child can't be making the decisions and steering the direction of the family and making rules and being the person that decides everything that happens. That cannot be. And and when I say you as a team, like the family team, you and your partner have to be together. You have to be the unified front against anything that would threaten the family and the connections therein. Otherwise, sheesh, yeah, you're a house divided against itself cannot stand. Unequally yoked is the words that Jesus used. It's just you're pulling two different directions, and so yeah, that's what I mean by that.
Brat, get over there. No, nothing like that. I always tell parents, the madder you get, the more you lose credibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the child looks at you and thinks, hey, you're a lunatic. I'm living with a lunatic.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay, I'll go to the corner. Look what I did to you. I ruined the next 2 hours for you. I can stand in a corner for 4 minutes. That's a nice trade-off.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what happens.
100%.
Sure. Now, if you have, I'm not going to ask you personally.
You can go. I could use a little evaluation.
Let's
do
it. Your
yes.
2 older ones.
Oh, they're thick as thieves, and they also can fight like cats and dogs. 2
so
boys.
you have a house rule. Boys, Rocky, Bruno.
Great names.
Right, good names. Conan, Cujo. You're not allowed to mistreat each other. There is no pushing. There's no shoving. There's no name calling. There's no jumping off the ropes. There's no soap in the eyes. Nothing. If you do, guys, it's automatic. I'm not going to try to figure out who started it because I wasn't in there. You both go to the corner.
Even when the 4-year-old, he just turned 4, has it in for the 5-year-old.
Yeah, even when. Now,
see, this is complicated. This is because then it could be an innocent party just got punished, and then here's the trick here. Here's the trouble here. How do you know who was the innocent party? Because maybe you didn't see. And let me tell you guys, this is the life of being a teacher. This is the life of being a teacher. And sadly, what I see teachers doing is group punishment like that. Exactly what he just said, because we don't know. Everybody says teachers have eyes in the back of their head. Dude, I miss so much disrespectful behavior that happens in the school. Like in my classroom, I can even in my classroom though, like if I'm dealing with a student who's having an issue, like I'm tying a shoe or working through a conflict and something happens across the room, dude, I have no idea what happened. So let me tell you what guides my choices in that moment. Because I think it would be wrong. I don't know that I'm with 100% on board with this guy here about what he said, just punish everybody. I think there are good things about that, and I think that it's easy in the sense that it guarantees the person that did the bad behavior gets punished. I do like that about it, but I don't like punishing innocence. I have a really hard time punishing, not even punishing, like withdrawing my good blessings from people that were doing nothing wrong. I have a horrible time doing that. So usually what happens, and there are flaws with my approach here too, like honestly guys, you tell me what you think of my teaching approach here, because I am not pretending to have all the answers here, but it bothers me so much to punish innocence that what I do when I don't see what happened, and when kids come to me with a conflict and a dispute and a disagreement or a fight or something like that, is I use reputation. Okay? And I think there's a lot of truth with the witnesses thing here. Like, this is why our courts work the way they do. Like, you have third parties uninvolved in the conflict telling what they saw. That's really good. But sometimes you just don't have time for that. You just don't have to, like, let's say, let me just give you a real world teaching scenario here. We leave the class in 3 minutes, okay? We are cleaning up to go to lunch in 3 minutes. and I am tying someone's shoe that probably has pee on it because it was untied when they went to the bathroom and they dragged it through anything that was on the floor of that elementary bathroom and then asked me to tie their shoe. So I'm sitting there putting my hands in who knows what, and I'm doing my best to not only tie the shoe for the child, but teach the child how to tie his own shoe, because it's just going to happen again. And he's going to come to me 5 minutes later again with the same problem. And I'm going to have to retie it. So you see where this is going. I'm really invested in fixing this problem here. Okay. And across the room, there is a fight happening. And I have, or not a fight, like a fist fight. I would obviously know then, but like there's a dispute. Somebody stepped on someone's toe or bumped somebody or said something disrespectful. I have no idea what happened back there. There's too much noise. I have 20 children in this classroom. There is too much talking going on or anything, just too much happening. It's not even talking, just too much. They could be dead quiet and there's too much happening, okay? So if I don't know, I'm then in the position where I have to solve it, okay? I have to do my best to help every one of these children, live in a respectful way towards one another, reward good behavior, not reward bad behavior. It's very complicated. So I have to figure out what happened. Reputation is key, okay? And this is where I think it's really good to try to get kids to have a good reputation and work on their reputation. If I look back there and Jimmy is having a problem with Jerry, and I'm obviously using fake names here, and Jerry has a horrible reputation and is fighting constantly with everyone at school and has had multiple conflicts and altercations with every single member of his class, Jerry is probably not getting good things in the situation, and Jimmy is probably not getting punished. Okay, because that's of course if both of them are, one of them is lying and I don't know who it is. I'm probably going to believe the person with the better reputation. Now you can tell me there are obviously ways that I get tricked here. It could be that the innocent party that normally it's not doing anything wrong just did something wrong and lied about it. Totally could be, and I could be letting them, and I could be giving them blessings for something that they did wrong. Totally could happen. And it probably has happened sometimes, but I think I think even when that happens, most of the time you can take this opportunity to teach children, hey, listen, I wasn't there, and you're both telling me things that are different. So I don't know who was telling the truth here, and it seems like none of your friends know either. So step 3 is going to be me making a decision based on your reputation. Jimmy, I've talked to you about this 6 times this week, which means this is a pattern for you. You have constantly been doing this bad behavior, even though I have talked to you multiple times about it, which means I don't believe you in this situation. I'm so sorry. I cannot trust what you're saying. Jerry, you've been doing pretty well with this week. That means that I have to listen to what you say in this situation, even though I don't know. That's really what it comes down to, okay? And it's not a flawless approach, And a lot of what I end up doing is teaching the resilience thing, teaching kids to have thick skin. But at the same time, then there's that truth of like, all that's necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. If I'm teaching children to just ignore bad behavior all the time, and I'm never actually giving the bad behavior a hard time, I'm contributing to the triumph of evil. This is kind of how I see it. I'm using dramatic language, obviously, but you get the point of what I'm going at. And so you don't want to be that teacher that just never fixes any problem in his or her classroom. And I'm kind of equating teaching to parenting here. You don't want to be that parent that just lets anything go and your kids just develop thick skin and learn to let nothing bother them because the behavior in the house is actually insane and out of control. I think it is good to be resilient, but I also think that it's good to reward goodness and you withhold reward from cruelty and tyranny and injustice and evil and stuff like that. And selfishness is a big one too. So like, I think it is important to put the time into figuring out what went wrong. Like you've got to, and I know you don't always have time to do that as a parent, because I don't always have to do that time to do that as a teacher, but you've just got to do your best. Okay. And that's got to be there. And I think another key that I've taken away from this episode is like, kindness doesn't have to leave when discipline and boundaries are enforced. Okay. You can still be kind and choose honor and respect, whether you're a parent or a child, even when you're doing the right thing. even when you don't like what the other party's doing, you can still choose honor and kindness and respect.
If you know, Lila.
No, they reciprocate. So I'm not saying it's all the younger kids' fault, but.
And I'll digress for a second. Experts give really dumb advice on this. They say, let them solve their own conflicts. Let them work it out on their own. Let them have conflict resolution skills. Now, the problem is your older kid is going to dominate because he's bigger, smarter, faster, stronger. Even though the 4-year-old provokes, your older son is like, no, I'm not putting up with this.
Or he loses his mind because he tries conflict resolution and the 3-year-old does not care.
That's exactly what I mean. Many of these theories don't work. So you have a rule. Can't do this. So you tell both boys, you sit on the couch over there, you sit over there. And they don't. They get off the couch. Or they do this. Am I still on the couch? Am I on the couch now, Mom?
Or they sit there and just go.
Yes, or they scream. That's right. They will do what I call escalation. It's very common. That's why parents will say, I don't really like the discipline because it gets ugly. And so what happens is it builds in inconsistency. I'll try to get you to take your discipline, 100%. But if you don't, I'm going to try to work my way through this or negotiate or do something or ignore you or whatever, because I don't want to have 6 minutes, 8 minutes, 20 minutes of a brawl here. Okay, boys. You don't have to sit on the couch. Everything's gone. And they'll have
Legos.
No, those are gone. Oh my gosh, those are gone. Favorite shirt is gone. Favorite cup is gone. Favorite hat is gone. Outside is gone. Toys are gone.
How do you pick that consistently, though? Do you have like a list premeditated of the 10 things that go?
No. I think that's got to depend on the child. And this is, again, take everything I say with a grain of salt because I haven't been a parent yet, but I have worked with thousands of kids, okay? And I have been the behavior management in my classroom for thousands of kids. And I will tell you one thing is the leverage, the currency that you use to reward good behavior and withhold from bad behavior has to depend on the child because they don't all care about the same things, okay? You have to find what the kid likes. You have to find what makes the kid tick. And that's what you use to reward. Like if you give, and this works both ways. If you give a kid a reward for good behavior that he does not value, you're paying him in the wrong currency and you're not actually rewarding him. Like let's say, you see him being so kind and respectful to everybody, even in the midst of a very hard situation. Okay. And you reward that good behavior with the wrong currency. Like you give him, I don't know, candy, and what he really likes is video games. You've missed the opportunity to reinforce his good behavior. And it's true in the inverse too. It's like if you give a student who, if you choose not to give a student good things who's having really, really bad behavior and he doesn't really care about those good things, you've not reinforced anything. You've not corrected. You've not disciplined. You have basically just done nothing because he doesn't care about the reward anyway. Okay, like let's say I give a kid outside time who let's say I give a kid extra recess, or I give a kid recess who treated his friends well, but every day all he does at recess is just sit and give me a hug at recess or just sit next to me and talk to me. That kid clearly does not like recess. He doesn't like moving. He doesn't like running. He doesn't like playing. That's not his thing. He doesn't like being out in the cold. Okay. I'm rewarding him with something that he doesn't care about. And it just doesn't work. Like then the same is true when you're trying to teach something. Like let's say I have a kid who is, being disrespectful to his classmate, physically or verbally or whatever. And I say, all right, so I've noticed this is a pattern. I've told you the rules of this classroom. We don't do that to each other here. And so you've chosen to go without your Chromebook today. I give Chromebooks to friends who are really kind to each other, and that behavior was not kind. And let's say that the kid that I just told that to doesn't ever even get on his Chromebook. He prefers his free time doing something else. I have taught nothing. I have not reinforced anything. I have not done it because that's not that kid's currency. And so I think she's asking, like, what's the list? How do you know what to take? It totally depends on the child. You have to pay attention as a parent. You have to pay attention. You have to find out Get to know your child. Find out what they like. And I'm not saying like this is some manipulative kind of controlling, I'm going to figure out your weakness and then use it against you kind of thing. I'm not saying that. It's just, you know your child because you love them and you spend time with them. And you don't give them good things for doing bad things. Instead, you give them good things for doing good things. That's what I think it has to be. And so, yeah, it's just my thinking. If you disagree, let me know what you thought or what you think instead. Again, through any medium, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube comments, whatever. And I would love to talk with you about it. But that's what I think. I hope you guys have enjoyed this conversation. I found it super interesting. If you would like to, give me your thoughts, as always, YouTube comments, Facebook and Instagram message to the show. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for listening today. If you made it to the end, you're part of like the 1% of the entire, listening community that made it this far. So thank you. God bless you in your efforts to be a good parent and raise your family well. Your marriage challenge this week, I'm going to start doing it at the beginning of the episode because nobody ever makes it this far in the episode. But your marriage challenge this week is going to be hold hands and go for a walk together. That's your marriage challenge. Thank you for listening today. God bless you, and I will talk to you guys next time.